Rip just found out the truth, and it's about to burn Beulah Jackson's entire world to the ground. In less than 1 week, Dutton Ranch is about to deliver its most violent, most emotional episode yet, and nobody, not even the Duttons, is walking away from this one unchanged. Something has shifted on the Dutton Ranch, and it happened fast. After 8 episodes of slow-burning tension, secrets, betrayals, and a family caught between loyalty and survival, the show is finally about to pay off everything it has been building since the very first episode. Episode 9, titled El Padrino, is set to close out Season 1, and everything we have seen so far tells us this is not going to be a quiet ending. This is going to be a reckoning, and it is coming for Beulah Jackson, for Rob Will, and for the fragile trust holding the Dutton and Jackson families together. Let's talk about where things stand right now, because the setup going into this finale is almost too tense to sit with. Beulah survived her heart attack, and in the aftermath, something unexpected happened. Everett McKinney, the man who has clearly loved her for longer than anyone realized, finally told her the truth. He wants to leave everything behind and build a life with her. For a moment, it felt like Beulah was finally being given something good. Something she actually deserved after everything she has sacrificed to keep 10 Petal Ranch standing. But that peace does not last, and it was never going to last, because the moment Beulah chose comfort with Everett, she also chose to walk away from a fight that is now bigger than she is. That fight has a name, and it's Rob Will. With Beulah stepping back, Rob Will has moved into a position of power that should terrify everyone around him, and it clearly terrifies Beulah too. She has made it painfully clear that she has no plans to challenge him, and that alone should be raising alarm bells for everyone watching. This is a woman who built an empire, who has clawed her way through every threat that has come her way, and now she is choosing to stay quiet. That is not weakness, that is fear, and fear like that does not come from nowhere. Beulah knows something about Rob Will that we don't, and it's terrifying enough to make her back down completely. Here's the part that really should worry you. Beulah has said in her own words that the only people she trusts right now are Beth and Rip. And on the surface, that sounds like a good thing. It sounds like an alliance forming at the exact moment the Jacksons need one. But Beulah has no idea, none at all, what Beth and Rip have actually been planning behind closed doors. She is placing her trust in 2 people who may already be building a case against the very ranch she has spent her life protecting. That is not a safety net. That is a countdown, and Beulah doesn't even know the clock has started. Now let's talk about the discovery that changes everything, because this is the moment the entire season has been circling. Austin, a ranch hand most people underestimated for 8 straight episodes, finally broke his silence. He told Beth and Rip something devastating. 10 Petal Ranch has been illegally smuggling cattle in from Mexico using falsified paperwork, and Wes, the man who was murdered earlier this season, was killed because he knew about it. Let that sink in for a second. This isn't just a business dispute between rival ranches anymore. This is a criminal operation, a smuggling ring that has been running under Beulah's nose, or worse, with her knowledge, and it directly connects to a man's death. For Beth and Rip, this changes absolutely everything, because it was this same illegal operation, this same reckless cattle smuggling, that caused the outbreak of foot and mouth disease that devastated their own herd earlier this season. That wasn't bad luck. That wasn't nature. That was the direct consequence of the Jackson family's greed and corner cutting, and now Beth and Rip know it. Anyone who has watched Beth Dutton for even a single episode knows exactly what happens next. She does not forgive this kind of betrayal, and she does not forget it either. This is the moment Beth and Rip stop playing defense, and it is the moment they start deciding exactly how far they are willing to go to make the Jacksons pay for what they have done. And while all of this is unraveling, Joaquin is making a move of his own, one that could end up being the most dangerous decision anyone makes this season. Frustrated after taking the murder weapon straight to Sheriff Wade, only to be brushed off because there is no body to prove a crime happened, Joaquin does something desperate. He picks up the phone and calls his father for help. On the surface, that sounds like a son reaching out in a moment of weakness. But if you have been paying close attention to the flashbacks this season, you already know that name carries far more weight than it should. Joaquin's father is not just a man from his past. He may be the key to everything this show has been building toward, and calling him could either save everyone Joaquin loves, or destroy them completely. Now let's get into the title itself, because El Padrino is not just a name someone picked at random. It translates directly to the Godfather, And once you understand who that title is actually pointing to, the entire final stretch of this season starts to look a lot darker than we originally thought. When Joaquin picked up that phone, he wasn't calling just anyone. He was calling a man tied to a name that has been circling this show since the very beginning. A man connected to Beulah's darkest secret. A man named Mariano. If you go back to the flashback we got earlier this season, there is a moment that changes how you have to read everything happening now. A young Beulah, in one of the most painful and vulnerable moments of her life, is saved by a man after suffering something horrific. That man is Mariano. And based on how the story has been laid out piece by piece, there is a real chance that Mariano is connected to Joaquin far more directly than anyone has said out loud. Whether he is Joaquin's biological father, a man who took the blame for something Beulah did, or someone who has been quietly running operations from the shadows this entire time, one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. Mariano may be the actual power behind Dutton Ranch, the man pulling strings that Beulah herself has been too afraid to touch. And here's where it gets even more unsettling. If Mariano is truly El Padrino, the godfather this title is referring to, then Joaquin didn't just make a phone call for help. He may have just reached out to the head of a criminal network, the very same network responsible for smuggling cattle across the border and for Wes's murder. That means Joaquin's desperate attempt to protect the people he loves could end up being the single most dangerous decision of the entire season. Because when you call a man like that for help, he does not simply solve your problem quietly. He solves it his way, and his way is almost never clean. So what does that actually mean for the people still standing on that ranch? If Mariano is coming, and everything about this trailer suggests he is, then this is no longer a story about family rivalry or business betrayal. This becomes a story about survival. Beulah spent this entire season trying to protect the people around her by staying quiet, by refusing to fight Will, by keeping secrets buried where she thought they would stay buried. But secrets like this do not stay buried forever. And the moment Mariano steps onto that ranch, every single person there, Beulah included, may be standing in the path of something far bigger and far more violent than anything this show has shown us so far. Now think about where that leaves Rip and Beth. They already know about the smuggling operation. They already know it caused the disease outbreak that hurt their own herd. And now, whether they realize it or not, they may be standing directly between Mariano and the operation he built. That is an incredibly dangerous place to be. But if there is one thing we know about Beth and Rip after everything they have survived together, it is that they do not back down from danger, even when they probably should. If Mariano is coming to protect his empire, Beth and Rip may be the two people standing in his way, and that alone should tell you exactly how explosive this finale is about to get. There is also the emotional weight of what this means for Joaquin. Imagine spending your entire life not fully understanding where you come from, only to discover that the man you are forced to call for help might be the very reason your world is falling apart. If Mariano truly is his father, then Joaquin didn't just make a call for backup. He may have just invited the one man capable of destroying everyone he cares about straight into the center of this war. That kind of guilt, that kind of impossible choice, is exactly the type of gut punch moment that makes a season finale unforgettable, and it feels like exactly where this story is heading. And let's not forget what this means for Beulah. If Mariano really is connected to her past in the way the flashbacks suggest, then Beulah is not just facing exposure of an illegal smuggling operation. She may be facing the return of a man tied to the single most traumatic moment of her entire life. Everett may have just given her a reason to hope for a peaceful future, a chance to finally walk away from all of this and build something good for herself. But if Mariano is truly coming back into her world, that peaceful future may already be slipping through her fingers before she even gets the chance to hold on to it. This is exactly why El Padrino feels like more than just an episode title. Feels like a warning. Whatever happens in this finale, it is not going to be contained to a single fight or a single confrontation. This title is telling us that a much older, much darker force is about to step back into this story. And once it does, nothing about Dutton Ranch is going to look the same again. Now let's talk about the actual finale trailer. Because once you watch it closely, you start to realize just how far this show is willing to go to end its first season. The trailer opens with something that immediately tells you how personal this fight has become. Rip throws a punch straight at Will, knocking him to the ground hard enough to draw blood. That is not a warning shot. That is Rip finally reaching the point where words are no longer enough. After everything Rob Will has done, after every threat, every manipulation, every ounce of danger he has brought to people Rip cares about, Rip is done talking. And when Rip asks Rob Will if he is running drugs through that ranch, Rob Will's answer says everything. He would rather die than admit the truth. That single line tells you just how deep this corruption actually runs, and it tells you that whatever Rip and Beth are about to uncover is far worse than illegal cattle smuggling alone. Then the trailer shifts, and this is where things get genuinely frightening. A group of masked men is shown approaching the ranch, and almost immediately after, Beth is seen grabbing a gun. Everett McKinney, a man we already know as a Navy veteran, is shown gearing up like he is preparing for a real firefight, and he says something chilling that he has not seen his last firefight yet. Azul and Zach are also shown armed and ready. This is not a group preparing for a conversation. This is a group preparing for war, and it looks like it is coming straight to their front door. One of the most unsettling moments in the entire trailer is a man we have never fully seen before, warning Beulah to get rid of her strangers, meaning Beth and Rip, or he will do it himself. Everything about the way this is delivered strongly suggests this is Mariano finally stepping out of the shadows and into the story directly. And if that is true, then this is no longer subtext. This is a direct threat against the two people who have become the emotional core of this entire show. Beulah now finds herself standing in an impossible position, caught between the two people she claims to trust most and a man from her past who has just made it clear he is willing to kill to protect what he has built. Then there is the moment that might be the most quietly devastating exchange in the whole trailer. Rip tells Beth that they want them, and without hesitation, Beth responds that if they want them, then they are going to get them. That single line captures everything about who Beth Dutton is. She does not shrink away from danger. She meets it head-on, even when the odds are stacked against her, even when the smarter move would be to walk away. That kind of fearless response is exactly why audiences have fallen in love with her character, and it is exactly why this finale feels like it could end in real lasting loss. Now here's where the emotional stakes get even heavier. Notice that Carter is nowhere to be seen in these confrontation scenes. After walking away from the ranch following his heartbreak and his falling out with Rip and Beth, Carter seems to be completely disconnected from the danger closing in on the people who raised him. That absence is not just a coincidence. It sets up a heartbreaking possibility. If the ranch comes under real, violent attack while Carter is gone, and something happens to Rip or Beth in his absence, Carter may spend the rest of his life carrying the guilt of not being there when it mattered most. Growth often comes at the worst possible moment in stories like this, and if Carter is forced to grow up through tragedy instead of choice, that could be one of the most gut-wrenching turns of the entire season. There is also Oreana to consider, Rob Will's own daughter, who has been caught in an impossible position all season between loyalty to her father and her growing connection to Carter and the Dutton side of this story. If the trailer's violence is aimed at Rob Will's operation, Oreana may be forced into the most painful decision of her life, choosing between blood and the people who have shown her something closer to real family.